Hi, everybody. Today I'm going to tell you more about how turn taking in conversation works. In particular, I'm going to explain how the most amazing part of turn taking works. How is it that one turn can start just microseconds after another turn finishes? If you try to do any other kind of coordination with another human being, it's almost impossible to coordinate our activity that closely. But in conversation, even with someone we've never met before, we can take turns and almost never overlap. And one person can start a turn just fractions of a second after another person stops. How could this possibly happen? I'm Bruce Lambert from HowCommunicationWorks.com. Let's get started. So conversation is the most typical form of human interaction. It's the prototypical kind of human communication. And it's just an amazingly intricate dance. And one of the most amazing parts about it is how closely linked our turns can be in conversation without overlapping or with only very short overlaps. If you were to record a conversation, one of the first things you would notice is that one turn starts just fractions of a second after another turn ends. How do we do this? There's a couple of things that can explain how we do this. The first is that in conversation, when we're talking, we do what's called projecting a completion point, meaning we sort of telegraph when we're going to be finished. And as listeners, we can hear when a turn is going to end. Now, there are a variety of ways we can do this. One of the reasons as listeners we can hear when a turn is going to end is that turns typically end at what are called points of possible completion. And there are a couple different kinds of points of possible completion. These are normally the ends of sentences, the ends of clauses, the ends of phrases, or the first part of two-part sequences like question, compliment, refusal or request refusal or offer or greeting. There are these two pair parts in conversation, and we know when one pair ends, the other pair is about to begin. But also the ends of sentences, the ends of clauses, the ends of phrases, and also descending intonation, which can also signal that we're done with the turn. And sometimes also our gaze, where we're looking. Normally in conversation, you think people make eye contact, but they don't normally make eye contact. When the speaker is speaking, they normally look away, and when their turn is about to finish, they come back and look. So all these things, nonverbal things like gaze and intonation, and then verbal things like the end of a sentence, the end of a clause, the end of a phrase, or the end of a first pair part of a greeting, or question answer, or something like that. All of those signal points of possible completion. And so whenever we're listening and we want to speak, we can hear that a phrase is about to end, a sentence is about to end, a clause is about to end, or gaze is returning to us, and we know the turn is about to end, and we don't have to wait till it ends. We can sort of time when it's going to end and begin right then. The other reason that we're able to do this so quickly is that there's a rule in conversation. Remember I talked about the three ways that turn taking works. The speaker can select the next person to take a turn, or another person can self-select, or the speaker can self-select and keep talking. So the rapid onset of a next turn following a previous turn often happens with self-selection. The other speaker self-selects. So the other person's talking and you're waiting to talk. And one of the rules in conversation is that the first person to talk gets the turn. So there's pressure to be the first person to speak, especially if there's more than two people in the conversation. Or if you want to get a turn, if you've ever been speaking to someone who doesn't yield the floor very easily, who doesn't like to give up the right to speak, then you're constantly listening for a pause, a breath, anything that signals a point of possible completion so you can jump in. So we're listening for that pause, sentence end, clause end, declining intonation, anything that signals the end of a turn. And we know that the first person to speak gets the turn. So these two things, the fact that speakers project the completion of their turns and that the next speaker is waiting, and they know that there's this rule, first speaker gets the turn, those two rules and forces combine to allow us to coordinate our activity very, very quickly. Now, sometimes there's brief overlaps, but often there's not. Often we accurately can anticipate the completion point, and because we want to be the next person to speak, we jump in because we know the first person gets the turn. So these two simple things, the projection of completion points and the anticipation of the next turn, are what allow us to so closely coordinate turns such that one turn ends and the other turn starts with just fractions of a second in between, sometimes barely measurable intervals, tenths of a second, hundredths of a second. So that's an amazing thing coordinated by these simple rules. And when I first learned this, I was reminded of another way that people coordinate their activities. When I was in high school, I took a drama class and I learned how stage fighting works. And the way that stage fight, you wonder when people fight on stage, how does no one get like a sword in the head? How come, or when they're punched, how do they always know when to block? And when I learned stage fighting, I learned the trick to this. And the trick is in stage fighting, the person being hit controls everything. So the person being hit, when you're stage fighting, you hold up your hand and that tells someone to hit you there. When you're sword fighting, you hold up your sword like that and they hit there. So the person being hit controls everything. That's why the person on the receiving end never gets hurt, because they're actually controlling where the blows come. So that reminded me of projecting a completion point. It's the person who's speaking is telling you when it's going to be your turn to talk. And they tell you this by either naming you or by the declining intonation at the end of their phrase or by the end of a sentence or the end of a clause or something like that. So conversation is just a miraculous thing. It's the most ordinary of all kinds of communication, so we take it for granted. But if you were to look at how it works, it's this amazing dance governed by these simple rules, all locally coordinated between two people who don't even have to know one another to make it work. It's just one of the small miracles of communication. And I hope you liked learning a little bit about it. So next time you're in a conversation, listen for those points of possible completion. Listen for the end of a sentence or clause, the declining intonation, and observe yourself waiting to be the next person to talk, and observe how you know when you can get in because you know when a sentence is going to end, or you know when there's going to be a pause and you can jump in right away, or observe others doing it and you'll see these rules in action. I hope you like this kind of video about communication. If you do, I hope that you would consider subscribing to our channel right below, or liking this video, or please give me a comment. Sometimes I think I'm just talking out there into the ether and no one's listening. So I would love to hear from you. Give me a comment. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you'd like to learn about next. And go on over to howcommunicationworks.com and sign up for our mailing list so you can be notified when there are new videos, and read about other articles on our blog about how communication works. So thanks so much. We'll tell you more about conversation in one of our next videos. See you next time.